Hello, hello, this is Naomi, your language coach, and today we are going to start with one of the units from the civil exam called Escuela Oficial de Idiomas Inglés or Secundaria Inglés. Those who are studying to become a teacher in secondary education, so for secondary schools, also for Escuela Oficial de Idiomas, what we call EOI, but I think it's better just to say it in Spanish, Escuela Oficial de Idiomas, English, right? English. And you know that I'm starting to become an official English teacher in Escuela Oficial de Idiomas. I know it's a very difficult civil exam, but that's my goal. So I'm in the process of studying it. So I'm going to share with you this unit. That is the number 56. You know that in the list of the themes or units, we have 68. For a moment, we have 68 units that we need to study, because the second part of the exam is to perform and write units. You will have maybe 5 different options, because they take 5 different numbers, and then you have to select one out of the 5 that they have picked, and then develop the unit and give the order of that unit, an explanation of every part of the unit in, I think, maximum 2 hours, I think you have for that part. Having said that, let's start with this. I'm going to share with you this document that I have created. This is the document. As you can see, it says Escuela Oficial de Idiomas, Secundaria Inglés, and a language coach with my logo, and then Unit 56, the role of literature in the syllabus of teaching English as a foreign language. So the syllabus this is part of the syllabus when you are, when you are teaching English or any language. You have to consider that literature plays a key role in that language, because it's the best works of language that we could read in that language. And it gives us cultural background, it gives us also rhythm, it gives us a lot of structures, and it's very useful. So I'm going to show you the unit structure. I won't enter deeply into each part, but I do want you to know how is the material that I'm studying and that I'm creating and that I'm sharing with my coachee people that are also studying to become an English teacher in secondary schools or Escuela Oficial de Idiomas. This is just an example, okay? So we have introduction, and then, well, actually, I'm going to show you first how is the document that I have designed. First, you have the index, we could say, with always with introduction and then the different points of that unit, then a conclusion or conclusions. Then you have the bibliography. That this is important because there is another document that I have shared in my website where you could download the bibliography of each unit, because you know that it's important that you study the structure that I'm giving you, but if you could add some information from your own experience and from your own readings and studies, that would be fantastic. So this is a bibliography that I'm sharing with you, and then I give you the questions, principal questions of that unit. In this case is, what is the main hindrance against teaching literature in the EFL, which is English as a foreign language, classroom, with regard to language? Second question that you could develop and study with me is discuss the advantages and disadvantages of graded readers. Third, how must the atmosphere be in the classroom, particular when teaching literature? Claro, so how is the atmosphere in that classroom? No? Are you going to leave some silent moments where they are going to pick the book and read in class, or are they going to share the reading and reading out loud in front of everybody? Or will you create a debate on the unit or the chapter that you are reading in that moment? Why is literature suitable for carrying and sharing activities? You know, like debates, also, you know, if it's a literature, you remember it's not only poems, you have their novels, you have their short stories, you have theater plays. So you have plenty of different texts, very, very useful, that you could perfectly encourage your students to talk about them. What is it advisable to expose the students to diversity of English norms through a sample of text of different origins? And this is interesting because it's not only about English literature and English writers, this is also about showing how other cultures have been using literature and they have been actually writing in English. Like, for example, I'm just going to go very far away probably from your point of view, but I just think, for example, I'm thinking in Kipling, or I'm thinking in this poet from Calcutta, Tagore, right? So that he wrote in English poems as well. But we don't need to go very, very far away. You know, we could think about how are the texts that we are these days writing also in English, in this world that it's more international, I mean, it's more global, and also English is an international language. Yes, so yeah, we could see also different rules of English language in different paradigms, in different contexts, in different cultures, we could say. Then I'm showing you here that another part of these PDFs, it's the outline or topic summary or a lesson plan. I'm giving you the 3 different names for the same thing: outline, topic summary, or a lesson plan. And in here is very similar to the first part, to the index, but usually it appears a little bit more developed, the different parts. But as I'm telling you, in the PDF, you don't have, in this PDF that I'm showing you here, you don't have the whole unit. You have just that structure, like the bones, we could say, with a little bit of, you know, of information in each part. Because my intention is that when you are listening to this video, if you are a civil examiner, if you are studying to pass this official exam, at least you could read or read this PDF, or if you are my coachee, or listen to this video to refresh your mind about this unit, okay? So I'm going to read this part. Introduction. Learning a foreign language implies taking into account the cultural peculiarities of its community of origin. Teaching literature in the EFL classroom, reasons against it. And now we have people that are giving reasons against teaching literature in the classroom. I'm not one of them, okay? I'm always pro teaching literature in class, obviously, because I studied philology, and then I specialize myself in literary criticism, especially Western cultures. So Spanish, but also English and French and Italian. So, you know, I have a background of literary criticism. So for me, it's like water. It really needs to be there. So in my lessons, and that's why you can see my previous videos where I'm teaching also mythology, or I'm teaching poets, English poets, and I'm giving you some short poems. And we learn a lot of vocabulary through them. So I think it's fantastic. Anyway, there are people that are against it. So we have those say language in literary text is not real, which actually it depends, you know, because if it's a theater play, it sounds very realistic. Or even in a novel, you could integrate some kind of conversation that is very realistic. But in general terms, I would also say that watching series and watching movies depends on the gender, it depends on the script of that series. It's not real. Yes, that's better to watch, for example, a video of someone having an interview in real time and having problems with the communication as well, because this is more realistic. Anyway, so yeah, there is some kind of truth in that. Literary texts are not real in the way that they have been written. Yes, but there are a lot of benefits as well. Anyway, we will talk about the benefits later. Another point against it is literary texts do not have a deep practical value. Some people believe that. I don't believe that. I think this is absolutely wrong idea. Literary texts, to me, are very practical in terms of deep. If we have to think about something being deep, literary texts are deep, and they are practical in the way that they express what we have inside. And we also have this, I'm going to tell you something that I love from that, which is when I'm reading someone's literary text, somehow the voice of that person, of that writer, is inside mine. And I think in a second language, that is a fantastic experience. You know, it's like drinking a beautiful liquid, we could say. Anyway, I keep reading this. Another reason against it is literary texts can only be used with advanced students. It depends on the approach of the teacher. Some people believe that. I don't believe that. I think that literary text could be perfectly selected and explained in a way that everybody could understand, even lower levels. Students are likely to offer resistance. Again, yes and not. It depends on the approach that you as a teacher are doing. You know, how do you do your teaching? How do you explain and approach these readings is the main thing, you know, as everything else. It could be very boring if you do it badly, but it could be fantastic if you handle it perfectly. So I think it depends on you, basically, on how you transmit your passion for literature. Second point, teaching literature in the EFL classroom. Reasons for it, and now reasons for it. Literature and life. Real life infuses language at every level, supplying it with its peculiarities. Yes, so what they are saying is writers have been picking the way that others speak, even in their own mother language, like people from, I don't know, from the countryside, people from the cities, even in the same city, different places of that city. You could perfectly understand me if you have lived in London, that I actually have experienced that, and the accent is completely different if there are people, if they are from the south of London than if they are in the center of London, or if they are in the north of London. So you could perfectly, you know, experience different accents, and the writers have been picking that variety. And you could perfectly also experience that through theater, which is, in my opinion, one of the best tools to learn and enjoy a second language, or any language, basically. Reasons for using literature in the EFL classroom. Literary texts provide motivating material. Yes. Literary texts provide for true access to cultural background. I have already said that, yes. Literary texts constitute material suitable for caring and sharing activities, enhancing interaction. Absolutely, yeah. Students, when they are reading something that they are motivated and they feel that they have learned something through that text, they are willing to share and even write their own reports, or we could say as well essays, or you could say their report essays, their own thinking and their own experience about that reading. Even being critical, you know, the critics, like literary become themselves their literary critics. Literary texts have helped develop students' interpretative abilities, of course, yes, their own interpretative abilities. And literature, helps the students in their personal growth. Yes, no question. This is like reading. When you are reading, you are experiencing what the main characters are achieving or are suffering. So you learn also through we could say the mirror of those characters. They become the mirrors where they see each other, as any other process in, for example, the myths. No, it's the same. Teaching literature in the EFL classroom, collateral issues. Well, let's see if there is any collateral issues. Only for advanced students, that's a question. Graded readers. So is literature only for students that have an advanced level, C1, C2, even maybe high B2 level? I don't think so. But of course, if you have a better understanding of English and you have studied more English, the better your English is, the better your understanding and your experience will be. That's logical. Literary material can be used with the students of every level. If complexity is too powerful an obstacle, greater readers will be much help. So yeah. Somehow also obstacles make us stronger. So yeah, we will have to help them more with that, but they also will learn how to cope with the difficulty, you know, like not simplifying all the time the potentiality of a language. I think it's a good exercise to be exposed to complex structures, to complex ideas, because the world is complex. So we continue. 3.2, English literature or literature in English. So what we were saying is that only English literature or any other literature in English. And in my opinion, both, you know, we are not, what we need for English is everything basically. So it is important to take into account the works written by other non-British authors so as to offer a comprehensive panorama of the English language. So we could maybe select from Irish people, I don't know, Bernard Shaw, for example, with Pygmalion. And then we could also explain something about maybe Ulysses, you know, it's very complex. I wouldn't choose that one. Dubliners, maybe, you know, the work from that writer, Irish writer. And but you could also show American writers, also Australian writers, but not only, I would say, not only British, American, Australian, Canadian. I would also say every person that is a writer and has written something interesting in English and with good, we could say, parameters of the language, I think we could use it. I said before, Tagore, Kipling, any other that you find there, that you could even give in speeches, you know, the speeches that have been written. For example, in my book club, we have read Nelson Mandela's speech. We also read I Have a Dream, you know, but that is famous speech in that revolutionary moments in America. So, you know, so we could perfectly use text and speeches that have been said and have been written in order to show the variety of that instrument, because English or any other language, at the end of the day, is an instrument that someone plays. Someone plays. It's like a music instrument. Yeah. So, for example, in my book club, obviously we have also read Virginia Woolf. We have read Elizabeth Jennings. We have read in the speech of Walking by Henry David Thoreau, which was fantastic. So we could also experience the different sounds of that instrument, English language, through different characters and writers. And I think that's the beauty of learning a language. Teaching literary text or teaching literature, it will depend on factors such as the student's needs, the flexibility of the syllabus, the learner's motivation to decide whether to work with isolated texts or to offer a complete literary syllabus. So yeah, this means, are we going to teach certain, imagine, inversions through some specific text where you could see the inversion perfectly? You could perfectly select a small speech, for example, you know, the ones that I have been reading in Cupid and Psyche story, it's full of inversions. But sometimes also it appears one inversion in the middle of a text that is a beautiful literary text, like for example, Virginia Woolf, Professions for Women. There inside you have an inversion that is a fantastic inversion that I always explain to my students. And when you are reading the text, suddenly you see how the inversion is highlighting what she is saying, no? Had I not killed her, she would have killed me. That is an inversion after she was explaining that she managed to kill the angel in the house, which is, you know, if you have read with me Professions for Women, you would understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, we move on. The next part, methodological issues. So it is about the method. Facts to bear in mind. We need to have in mind goals, individualization. So if we are going to, you know, give different texts or literary works to different students. Roles of teachers and students. What's my role in teaching this? And what are their roles in learning these things? Resources, yes. Modeling language. So yeah, imagine that you are teaching, well, this is something that actually happens in a very osmosis way, because we write as the text that we read in any language. For example, every time that I'm reading the poets in English, I end up writing like them a little bit. Yes, because we are monkeys, so we repeat. Modeling is like saying, if you read Virginia Woolf, for example, and you are immersed in Virginia Woolf's world and work, I'm sure you will end up saying something very similar to how she did it. Yeah. Affect is, yeah, it has an impact. It has an impact in your life, in the way you talk, in the way you listen, in the way you experience the world. Readiness would be, are you ready to really listen to these texts and understand it with all your potential? And then silence like a key element in your English lessons, where they should also experience that reading should be sometimes no, most of the time. And it's an experience that is a lonely experience without very many impacts. Being on your own, sit down on the couch, reading it, and we need silence, because in that moment when you are in silence and you are only focused on the reading, you experience the voice of that writer. And that is a beautiful experience. You know, I'm always, you know, having that experience. That's why in your mind, you are integrating the different voices of those writers. And I think that's beautiful. Language-based approaches to literature teaching. They are regarded as the most suitable for they use the same principles which support second language teaching. Language-based approaches to literature teaching. They are regarded as the most suitable for they use the same principles which support second language teaching. Yeah, so you kind of align, I think here is more like saying, okay, in your methodology of teaching English, consider different texts with the language that they are, so really experience how is the language of that person, explain how this writer use it, and what are the literary license that the person is doing or breaking. Criteria for the selection of literary material. With regard to the text, consider availability of the printed text. But nowadays, I think we have all access to that. So you use a text, share that text. Text provide for a representative selection of the literature as a whole. Yeah, so, I mean, if you have to select, remember, just, I don't know, consider, you know, placing some of the most important authors of that language, in this case, English. Familiar text versus not widely known one. So this is a criteria, is a familiar text or is not widely known one? So as I was saying, is that writer that everybody knows, or is someone that nobody knows but you find it interesting? Okay. Selection restricted by syllabus versus free selection. Yeah, so if you are making them choose, do they have to select with a restricted selection that you have done, or you just say, okay, choose any book and then cope with the difficulties on your own? My recommendation is select them. I mean, they could always take any free selection on their own, but if you are teaching, I think it's better that you accompany them in one specific text that you are explaining and reading with them. Contemporary text versus not modern ones. I think both. Conceptually easy versus conceptually difficult. Both, again, because life is full of easy things and life is full of difficult conceptual things. So I think we need to use both. Length text versus short ones. Exactly the same. They need to cope with the length of a text and also with the short ones, but it's important that you have that in mind when you are selecting in a syllabus, because you are not to take all the time long text. You're going to have to maybe the length of the text is important, so be careful. Long text or short ones. Taught for its own sake versus part of a series. Yeah, so it's that in just only one, or is in a series of approaches. Selected for theme versus selected for gender or period. Yeah, so remember, period in centuries, or gender, like gender here is not female or male. Gender here is literary gender. So it's this theater, novel, poem, you know, poetry. I mean, poetry and poem, it could be very poetic. So don't confuse poetic with poetry, okay? Some novel could be very poetic, but that is not a poem, it's a novel. Yes, and then we have also novella, which is shorter than a novel, maybe 800 or maximum 100 pages could be a novella. It's shorter than a long novel, okay? With regard to students, age and level of intellectual and emotional development, level of linguistic competence, familiarity with literary background. So yeah, we have to have in mind the age, the level of intellectual and emotional development, level of linguistic competence. If they know, if they are familiar with certain writers, why not to choose some of the things that they already know and the writers that they are interested in studying. The last part, it would be working with literary text. Is that a poem? Is that a play? Is that a short story or novel? Okay, and then conclusion. It is advisable to use literary material in the EFL classroom for its potential rewards are sure to compensate the higher work input by the teacher. Okay, and that's it. This is more or less what I wanted to show you. As you can see is it's a PDF with everything organized in a way that is for you to refresh what is about the unit 56. If you like my content, if you think this is a useful tool to study for your official exam or for your civil exam, please subscribe to my channel, say you like, and leave me a comment below. I'll see you next time. Bye.